Hey, somebody's got to tell NASA we're ready for liftoff. You did? Excellent. Good morning, afternoon, or evening. You are listening to the Professional Noticer.
Hi-yo!
Here, you and I will use common sense and all the wisdom we can muster to move beyond what is true and go all the way to the truth. With listeners now in 93 countries around the world, welcome Argentina. Hey, Argentina! I am the Professional Noticer.
I thought that was you, man!
Hello, everyone. I'm Andy Andrews. Hey, thank you for making me a part of your week. As the Professional Noticer, it is my job, of course, to professionally notice something for you. And nothing is off limits. So, what do you have this week? Come on, what do you have? Business, spiritual issues, popular culture? Here, we even tackle the odd conundrum like, which is heavier, a pound of bricks or a pound of fresh goose feathers? My purpose here, today, and with every show we do, is to play the part of a best friend or a coach. I want to help you live the life you would live if all your toughest questions were answered. The Professional Noticer is sponsored this week by growingdeer.com. If you already watch Growing Deer episodes or regularly visit the growingdeer.com website, you already know why I'm a fan. Their weekly show arrives in my email inbox every Monday morning, and we get on it right away. Wildlife biologist Dr. Grant Woods. Awesome guy, awesome family, and he hosts the program, and the subjects range from scientific tips about nutrition and animals and to providing the right crops for deer to reach their antler potential. There might be some fascinating segment about predators or something about how minerals move from one substance to another. It's amazing stuff. And, Growing Deer, we've seen them devote a whole episode to prescription fire. This is curious. It really brought me from one kind of thinking to another. It talked about how it was done without injuring birds and animals and what really happens to their habitat afterwards and why, if we really want to see wildlife in our woods, we must do certain things that on the surface seem harmful. There are massive benefits to a carefully controlled burn. And I bet you'll be as shocked as I was when Dr. Grant proves it to you. Find that episode. Come on, you guys. This is amazing stuff. Dr. Grant's wife, Tracy, as well as their daughters, Raleigh and Ray, make frequent appearances, and the whole operation is it's just an awesome example for us about how a family can work together, make a living together, play together, support each other, whether you're an outdoor person or not. Certainly, an outdoor person, but there's benefits to all of us with this particular website, this particular show. Turn them on to growingdeer.com, and you go check it out too. That's growingdeer.com. Observations and answers. What we do here, I deliver the observations. You provide the questions, of course. It's very important because remember, the quality of any answer I might come up with can only be determined by the quality of your questions. And so I'd love to field a question from you. Write me. The email is theprofessionalnoticer@andyandrews.com. And listen, if we use your question, the Professional Noticer will send you your choice of the Guided Traveler Experience. This is over 8 hours of a live video seminar, or you could choose the 100-year parenting course. This is a collection of 53 videos, each between 10 and 20 minutes. Very interesting, funny stuff. So, before we get to our first question, would you like the answer to this week's conundrum? Remember, which is heavier, a pound of bricks or a pound of fresh goose feathers? The answer is clearly the feathers, because obviously you'll have to live with the weight of what must have been done to that poor goose to get those fresh feathers. This week, our question is from Chad. Hey, Chad.
Hey, Andy. I'm a big fan and have listened to the podcast for years. Whenever someone has a work-related problem, you and several other podcasters come at it from a private sector perspective. I get that we're in the minority, but what do you suggest for public sector leaders who want to do a better job but don't have the levers to pull that private sector leaders might? I work in a high-stress job where burnout is common. Our state's economy is the worst in the nation, and the citizens of Alaska have traditionally had an anti-government attitude. So being a public employee is not exactly popular here. especially when public employees are seen as a big part of the reason that our state has a deficit, even though we have no state sales or income tax. I can't incentivize or reward my people through pay bonuses, raises, more leave, sabbaticals, or anything else like that. We are drastically understaffed, and the people are constantly leaving for better conditions and higher pay, often in the private sector. In the private sector, when a business falters, it's because there's not enough demand for the product or service, so layoffs are warranted. In the public sector, there's more demand forever than our services, but the public refuses to pay for them. What suggestions do you have for motivating very hardworking employees and keeping myself motivated at the same time? This economic downturn has been going on for 4 years, and there's no end in sight. We were within days of layoff notices going out again this year because the legislature couldn't pass a balanced budget and the governor wouldn't agree to their proposals. Thanks, Andy. I look forward to hearing what you have to say. Chad.
Well, Chad, before you said Alaska, I heard our state's economy is the worst in the nation, and I just assumed you must be from my state. Of course, I'm thinking there's a lot of people that might have thought you were from their state when you said that, because a lot of people feel like the economy in their state is horrible. Now, I'm not disputing. These are probably numbers you got somewhere, and so I'm not disputing that. And I know that the economy in Alaska is probably a little bit narrower than some other states, because there are clearly some things that are moneymakers there, and clearly, I guess, limits with the weather and advantages of the weather. But I don't doubt that the citizens have traditionally had an anti-government attitude. See that a lot too. I appreciate you listening to the podcast. I'm trying to think through this as I remember the things that you said here. You mentioned that when somebody has a work-related problem, that several podcasters, including me, that we come at it from a private sector perspective, and I don't doubt that. I know you are accurate in that statement, and but it's also curious that you ask, because okay, well, we're in the minority, but what do you suggest for public sector leaders? And you mentioned we don't have the levers to pull. The private sector leaders might. That is true, because with the private sector, you have a lot of possibilities at hand if people aren't performing, or if there's not any money to pay them. You have a lot of possibilities at hand, and those don't seem to be possibilities in public sector work. Now, can I, if you don't mind, Chad, could I answer your basic question? I want to answer your question about the suggestions that I might have for you in motivating your hardworking employees and keeping yourself motivated. Can I answer that? And then do you mind if I make some observations about our thoughts about public sector, private sector, where we all fall within that, who's responsible, how we become responsible, I think because your choices are limited, you said you don't have the levers to pull that a private sector leader might have. And so when you ask for suggestions about motivating your employees, motivating yourself, I can only go with, I suppose, the greatest one of all. Now, you might just laugh in my face when I say this, because certainly somebody has mentioned this to you before. Certainly somebody has said something about it. And I can very easily see how somebody in your position might be incredibly frustrated and might just absolutely blow off what I'm about to say as ridiculous advice. But honestly, buddy, the only real suggestion that I have to you for motivating these employees, and probably for keeping yourself motivated at the same time, is recognition. Let me tell you why I say that. I say that because you already told me you can't afford anything. You can't give them a raise. You can't give them a bonus. I mean, in the public sector, Chad, you can't even fire them, right? I mean, you can't even lay them off. And so what I suggest is somehow to create a process of recognition. And the reason I suggest that, two reasons. One is, it's the only thing you have. It isn't like you can give anybody trips. And we already talked about the other part of it. But the second reason that I mention recognition is because in the private sector, it's the only thing that I've ever seen that people crave more than money. I have seen people in the private sector do things for recognition that nobody will do for a salary or a bonus. I have seen people do things in life in general for recognition that you would not be able to get anybody else to do in a million years. But there's an old saying about recognition, and it is this, that babies cry for it and grown men die for it. Recognition is the one thing that most of the people who really deserve it never get. A lot of the recognition in the private sector, frankly, goes to people who it was somebody else's ideas or work, or it was somebody else that earned a great deal of the recognition that they might get. And yet, if you'll just think back to times that there are people who will do just, I mean, okay, well, we're giving a badge to the people who do this, and people just knock themselves out for the badge. I mean, we were paying money for it for years, but now we're just going to give you a badge. Well, now all of a sudden they'll do it for a badge. There have been studies done about what happens with companies who decide that their awards banquets or their public events rewarding employees and recognizing them for their achievements. There's been studies that show what happens to those companies when they drop that kind of stuff. And it's also very curious to me, Chad, that the people who tend to think that recognition is kind of nothing, or recognition is not the thing we need here, or recognition is costing us too much to recognize these people. The people who make those kind of decisions are generally people who have enough recognition in their life. So for your people and for you, I really recommend finding unique ways to recognize them. Now, somebody might say, well, now you told Chad that was going to help them and it was going to help Chad. How in the world, Andy, do you think that recognizing those other people, how is that going to help Chad? Well, it's because when you do something for other people and you see people you care about excited, and you see people that you love that are recognized for the work that they've done. And they've been, you are the one who gets to give them appreciation. It does something for you. And so, Chad, you're the one that's going to have to figure out how this is done. You're going to have to figure out how to recognize these people in a unique way, in a way that doesn't require, it doesn't require money, because, right, the legislature and the government and the people of Alaska, evidently, they're not going to provide the money. And you're not lacking money anyway. You're only lacking an idea. One idea can turn this thing around in a huge way. Now, I want to comment about a couple of things that I think is just kind of in our nation as a whole. In every state that I see, we have people working in the public sector, and they're being called on to do more and more and more with less and less and less. And the reason we are calling on them to do more is because we have it in the first place, right? I think that's correct. If I didn't even know that garbage pickup was available, if I didn't even know garbage pickup was even an idea, that nobody was getting their garbage picked up, that I had to figure out what to do with my own garbage. If I didn't know that garbage pickup was even a possibility, I certainly wouldn't be pushing for earlier garbage pickup or another day a week, or to allow me an extra can out. You see what I'm saying? A lot of the way we feel is because of the things that we have. A lot of the way we feel is because of a lot of the things that we have gotten used to. You got the people who do those jobs, who work in those situations, and then the other citizens, they kind of feel like, well, this is a right of mine. This is something, my kids are supposed to have this. We tend to think that roads clean themselves, or we tend to think that food comes out of the air for some people. And there are things that we just kind of believe about our situations. And part of the reason that costs more and more is because since we have certain things, we tend to add more. We tend to add more things. And we tend to elect people who promise to give us more things. Right? If we're foolish and we have a choice of two parents, and one of our parents says, we don't have the money to have somebody make up your bed and clean the kitchen every day, and we don't have the money to have somebody else mow the lawn. And so, as part of this family, you are going to have to make up your bed every day. You're going to have to be a part of cleaning up the kitchen, and it's going to be your responsibility to mow the lawn for the rest of the family. And so we can choose the parents that say that, or we get to go and live with the parents who will stand right there beside the first parents, and these other parents will say, you ain't got to do any of that stuff. Are you kidding me? You ain't got to do any of that. You just come live with us. We'll have somebody, make your bed every day. We'll have somebody clean the kitchen. You don't have to mow the lawn. We'll get somebody to do that for you. And so, being foolish, we choose those parents, and we say, okay, all right, I'm going to live there. And so we live there, and it seems pretty good. We don't notice that there's some other things that we're missing out on, but that's just part of it. We don't realize there's money being taken from one place to pay for the people who clean up our kitchen and mow our lawn. And of course, if you do have your lawn mowed and you do have your kitchen cleaned and you do have your bed made up, somewhere along the line, you might start thinking, why do I have to clean the bathroom? I mean, somebody's here to clean up the beds. Somebody's here to make the bed. Somebody's here to clean up the kitchen. Why can't they just stop at the bathroom in the middle of it? And then maybe maybe those other parents would say, well, yeah, we could have somebody clean the bathroom, but I know you've been getting $1 a week allowance, and so we can get it done, but you're just going to have to go to 75 cents on your allowance. And wait a minute. And you hear how logical this sounds, but it only sounds illogical if you put it, if you apply it to yourself. It only sounds illogical if you apply it to a family like yours. Somehow when somebody's talking about billions and trillions of dollars, it just kind of doesn't seem real. And so we kind of think that everybody just ought to have the jobs they have, and everybody ought to be able to just live the way they want to, and it's just not it's not reality. And you know what? It's not reality to believe that money is going to solve the problem anyway. The issue, when you mention, Chad, that legislature can't pass a balanced budget and the governor won't agree to their proposals, the cost of living says that all this stuff's going up anyway. I mean, it's going up anyway. I mean, the balanced budget that they don't pass this time is going to be a higher budget to pass next time anyway, just the cost of living, if nothing changes. And of course, you probably have a governor who won't agree to their proposals because he listens to the polls. And the polls say that he won't get elected next time. I mean, you see where this is going, right? See, there is a real challenge in the thought that money, especially money that we don't have, that money can solve issues. I mean, there are very few issues that money can solve. At the bottom of the pool, we have a communication problem. That's it at the bottom of the pool. We have I believe, a leadership void, because the essence of leadership is influence. The essence of influence is agreement, not disagreement. People do not follow people they disagree with. And a nation will not follow any leader with whom they disagree. And so if the leadership becomes so disagreeable that sides fracture and nobody's talking to anybody, then you can't find anything to agree on because nobody will talk to anybody. Well, that's just at the bottom of the pool. It's a communication issue. I watched in my own state recently a huge project that, it was apparently needed, and I watched it get absolutely done away with for a lack of communication, just for lack of communication. Because I think both sides were presenting the issue in a way that was so obviously slanted that nobody else could see any other possibility. I'll tell you what happened. It's no secret. But in Alabama, in South Alabama, there was a bridge proposed. This was going to be billions of dollars. This is a long-term thing. And this bridge was going to be across Mobile Bay. And it's in the southern part of the state. And the bridge was going to have to be built at a certain height that even on the highest of tides, the largest of ships in the world could get through it, because right now that's not the case. Certain cargo has to get, it can go to New York, it can go to Miami, it can go to New Orleans, but it can't come into Mobile because it can't get under the bridge, right? So they're going to build a bridge that it could get under, and it was going to be an additional evacuation or route for hurricanes. And I said, well, the federal government would kick in so much, but it wasn't nearly enough. Apparently, the state didn't have enough to make that go. And so the only way now, I'm not saying which side I was on or if I even had a side. I probably wasn't going to use the bridge. I just don't go that way. But I will tell you this: as a person who works with people who either have a high level of communication and high abilities in communication, and if they don't, they go out of business. I saw an amazing ineffectiveness in ability to communicate on both sides. Because what happened is, without the money, one side said, okay, then it's going to have to be a toll bridge. And the toll is going to have to be about $6 every time somebody goes across it. Well, immediately there were tons of people who said, you can't do that. You can't do that. You can't do a toll. How are people going to afford it? Nobody could afford that toll. People can't afford it. We were talking about working class people. People can't afford the toll. And so it became this kind of rich versus poor, the one part of the government against another part of the government, one part of the state against another part of the state. And it became the bridge people against the no toll people. And ultimately, even though the road that they have to continue to use now is already crowded and crazy and all of that, and they're saying that in a few years it's going to be much, much worse. And even though now Mobile will not be a part of the kind of a larger economy and being able to have cargo coming into the Port of Mobile, which is the entire state of Alabama, because it can't. So now there will be no bridge. Okay, so to some people that's bad. To some people they don't care. To some people it's like, okay, well, good, no bridge, nobody told. But nobody ever really got in and approached everybody with a single possibility that everybody could agree with. See, you got to figure out, if you're going to be an effective leader, you got to figure out, how can I lead everybody? The only way to lead everybody is to find something that people agree on. You just cannot keep them in opposite corners, because you end up leading no one. But nobody ever, and nobody asked me, okay, nobody asked me, and I was too scared of them all to say anything. But nobody ever said, what if we could do something that would allow the impact economically of a brand new bridge? We could make that bridge available for free to everybody in the case of an emergency, but then you would have your choice as to whether you wanted to use it any other time or not. You didn't ever have to pay the toll, and you could still do, go to work same way you're going to work now. You go, but if you wanted to, you could pay it, but you wouldn't have to pay it. And yet we could make it available to you for free in an emergency, and we have the economic impact for the state, and we can make the rich people pay for it. Everybody go for that? I think it might have helped the conversation, because see, without the bridge, the economic impact It's not going to happen now. Okay. And in reality, without the bridge at all, people are just going to keep going to work like they always did. They're going to keep going the way they always did. Well, building the bridge, they weren't going to tear down those roads. They weren't going to tear down the bridges that, even with a toll bridge, you keep going to work like you didn't ever have to pay the toll. In the event of a hurricane, when they open things for an evacuation, they open both lanes going one way and all tolls are done away with. You just go through for free. The highway patrol waves everybody through. When you're evacuating for a hurricane, you can't go but one way on the interstate. If everybody's going north, they open the northbound and the southbound of I-65, and everybody's going north. And so in the event of a hurricane, there would be no toll. Okay, but you would have the bridge, and you would have the economic impact for the state, and the rich people would pay for it because, remember, you and I, we're going to use it anyway. We're all going our way. And I'm guessing it's only rich people who'd say, yeah, I'll pay $6 over there and $6 back every single day of my life. So I guess it's only the rich people are going to pay the toll. And so let's let the rich people pay for it. And then you and I will have a bridge to use in emergencies. And you and I will have the economic impact for the entire state. And it just amazes me, though, that nobody ever brought that up. See, Chad, some way we have to communicate with each other about reality. I live in Alabama, and, I've heard people talk about education in Alabama since God was a boy. I've for years. Every time there's an election, they talk, well, we got to have education. If we're going to build this state, if we're going to, if we're going to have an economic impact of this state, it starts with educating our children. If we're going to educate our children, we got to have more money for education. We just got to have, I'm 60. And at least since I was 15, I can remember hearing everybody talking about having more money for education, not having enough money for education. If I get elected, I'll have more money for education. And so they've added money for education over and over and over again. And Chad, your economy may be the worst in the nation, but as far as I know, thank God for Mississippi in education, because Alabama, we're like 49th. Maybe Mississippi and District of Columbia. Okay, knock us out of that last spot. But my point is, we've added money for years, and education hadn't really done anything for the quality of education. But when you think about it, why would you expect money to do anything to improve it anyway? The deal isn't necessarily money. It's how the money is being spent. It's not money. If you look at a church, and this church is just like hemorrhaging people, and they're just found out that the pastor is involved in affairs with women, and the minister of music is stealing money, and it's just hemorrhaging members. Somebody can look at that and say, that is a shame that a house of God is having problems like that. I am going to give $1 million to this church because of this. And you know what you have then? You have a bad church with $1 million to spend. That's what you have. But it didn't do anything to change how the church was behaving or spending their money. We have to be smarter with what we do. We have to be smarter with our money. And that means to be smarter and more honest with our communication. And the only way this kind of stuff is going to be solved in our government is having people look at themselves. There have been people who have said for years that the only real hope for change America has is term limits, with with the Congress and the Senate. It's the only chance we have for real change is term limits. But when you look at a group of people as a whole, they have a 92% disapproval rating, and yet when you poll the American people and ask if their congressperson is doing a good job, 70-something percent say yes. And if term limits are the only real hope we have for change, and yet the only people who can make term limits happen are Congress and the Senate, the people who have a vested interest in not having term limits occur. Now, look, I may be causing more trouble. I may be creating more trouble than I am solving with this next statement. And this is a generality, and I know that it is, okay? I know congressmen, I know senators. And of course, like many of you, mine are great. The ones I know are great. But I gotta say, and this is a generality that I know is going to get me in trouble, I just have to say that I cannot figure out how somebody can go into public service on the congressional level or the Senate level. I cannot figure out how somebody can go into public service and have no money and then 10, 12 years later have a lot of money. I don't understand how that works, I guess. And you say, well, Andy, you're very naive. I must be. I must really be naive. Because I don't see how that works. I mean, we had a governor in Alabama. No, he went to prison, but we still had a governor in Alabama that when he graduated from college, he immediately was elected to public service and was elected. It continued in as a publicly elected official and continued as a publicly elected official his entire life until the governor's office. And when he went to prison, it was worth $50 million. How do you do that? I don't even know how you do that. But it's a good job if you can avoid that prison part. Listen, did we get off the subject? Matt, did I get off the subject? I did. Yeah, Matt goes, oh, only a little bit. He's holding his arms out, like stretching as far wide as he can. Chad, I feel for you, man. You didn't ask for this today. You asked a question that I honestly, the only thing I know is to dig deep and figure out a level of communication that nobody's paying attention to. We got to figure out how to get people interested in the truth, which becoming interested in the truth would mean that they would be interested in the best for their families. And a lot of people say there's nothing we agree on anymore. I don't believe that. I think there's plenty of things we agree on. I think no matter what political party you are a part of, I think you want the best for your children. And what we have to understand as human beings is that the best is one thing. There may be different categories, but it's one thing. And we're not usually the ones who decides it. Okay? We're not great judges of what the best might be. I mean, how many times have we thought that was the best? That was the best I could imagine, but I ended up not getting it, and then something else happened, and boy, I sure am glad that happened because now, what I have now is really the best. Okay, well, obviously, we're just not a great judge of it to begin with, but if we can agree that we want the best for our children, if we can agree that we want the best for our nation, that if we can agree to pursue the best. And the only way we're ever going to have the best is if it's the best for everybody. because the best does not exclude half the people in our country. Now, am I saying that there are no absolutes? No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying with all the things that can be put on the table, neither side is right about everything, and neither side is wrong about everything. And so we can find absolutes. We can find absolutes in principle, and we can negotiate the opinions. Chad, thank you for the question. Whew. We'll talk more about this stuff, and I feel for you out there, but I think you have an awesome state, awesome people, very smart people. Your state's one of the most educated that there is, and so you got smart people, and let's just be pursuing that wisdom along the way, and you do your part, I know you will, and help these people understand how important they are. And let's move ahead together. Okay? Thanks, Chad. I'm Andy Andrews, the professional noticer, harnessing common sense and as much wisdom as I can muster to plow through challenges all the way to an answer for all of us. Hey, here's a thought. I know you can use Google to find an industrial pair of rubber boots or the answer to how to install a new shower in the basement. But where do you seek wisdom? There's a difference, in knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge will help you learn what you think is enough information to get you through whatever project you're on. Wisdom will tell you when it's time to find someone who knows more than you do to help. Pure knowledge, without the wisdom to apply that knowledge in the proper context and on a consistent basis, is often just useless. Allow me to suggest wisdomharbor.com. That's wisdom, HARBOUR.com. Go there now. Go there. And you'll enjoy this. Be welcomed by a friend of yours. The friend of yours is me. And I'll make sure that you get a free 5-minute guided tour. And then become a member of Wisdom Harbor. What an awesome place. What an incredible time we're having there. It's only $17 a month, and you can do this for your family, your business, and your schools. WisdomHarbor.com. Okay, I'm the professional noticer. Ladies and gentlemen, if you appreciate this podcast, I would appreciate you going to iTunes and giving us a nice review, okay? Now, you can only review a particular podcast on iTunes once, right? Therefore, if you haven't already, please make sure that you review it today. And since you can only do this once and then you're done with it forever, you can just consider reviewing this podcast on iTunes, kind of like, getting a polio shot, okay? Or maybe it's like registering your washing machine with Whirlpool's service department, or getting baptized. I mean, once you post a review on iTunes, I'm not going to bug you about it again, right? There will be no reason for me to. I mean, it wouldn't even count the second time anyway. On the other hand, I would really like for you to talk to your family and friends about the good news of the professional noticer. Then maybe they could become one of us, and we'll both bug them to get baptized. To post a review on iTunes. Anyway, I think that'll do it for this week. Get us out of here, Matthew. So, ladies and gentlemen, and to the boys and girls who aspire to become ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of another episode of The Professional Noticer. In a world where common sense has become a superpower, I'm harnessing that tiny bit of mental energy I have for you, seeking wisdom, making observations, and endeavoring to answer tough questions in a way that will empower your family and your business. I'm Andy Andrews. Until next week, smile while you talk. Shake hands with the kids you meet and make sure you have an answer to the question, what do chickens think we taste like? So, until next week, goodbye. This episode of The Professional Noticer was produced by Matt Limpert. The Noticer theme written and performed by Sugarcane Jane. Uncle John's Bathroom Reader provided by Twinkle and Smoke of Beverly Hills. Additional financial consideration provided by HypeWordsForYourBusiness.com. HypeWordsForYourBusiness.com will enable you to take a deep dive into the geolocation of core competency required to push the envelope for your business and bring a whole new revolution to your best-in-class product. With words like hyperlocal or sustainably sourced floating around your sales copy, you'll be sure to make your chemical plant sound like it was built from organic compost. Or maybe you're on the opposite end and working to market your tiny little business. Words like scalability and cross-platform will take the business that fits in the smallest corner of your garage and make its geolocation appear to run the retail outlets you are opening all over the world. In no time, you'll close the digital divide and finding all the impacting deliverables that you could possibly drill down to the bandwidth of microservices you offer. Let HypeWords for Your Business take you out of beta and into the streamlined environmental solutions you've always imagined. That's HypeWordsForYourBusiness.com.